Welcome back. Returning to the show this week is my friend Aleks Svetski. He's an author, entrepreneur, founder of the Bitcoin Times. And Aleks, it's always so great to see you. How are you?
Natalie, good to see you again.
It's been a while.
It has. It's
Up-
literally been exactly 1 year, I think.
yeah, update me on your life. What's going on?
Oh, God help me. There's too many things going on. So I'm apparently running an AI company now. So we're building some stuff at like the nexus of Bitcoin and AI. We have two focuses. Focus number one is using AI and AI things to make Bitcoin more useful. So we're building the world's first open source Bitcoin model. So think of like, the code llamas and all this sort of stuff, but we're calling it the Satoshi series of models. So that'll be open sourced end of the year. We've also got Code Satoshi. So you'll be able to have like a Satoshi suite of code focused models to help you produce code, correct code, and explain code that is Bitcoin related.
Cool.
And we've also trying to use Bitcoin to make creating open source language models easier by introducing micropayments. So you can basically crowdsource the development of a model, which was how we built the Satoshi suite. And other than that, got the Bushido of Bitcoin still coming. I know I've been talking about this for a long time, but this is going to be the greatest thing that's ever written. Pardon my arrogance, but like it is, man, it is. Yeah, it's been a pleasure to write, and then obviously the Bitcoin Times, and then a couple other things that I've got my fingers into, but we'll get to
I
all
love
that.
it. Well, let's touch on some of those things. I really want to start with the Bitcoin Times because you have the energy issue coming out soon, and it was beautiful as
Thank
always.
you.
Obviously, if people follow you, they know that you have a way with words, and you touched on some really interesting themes with it. So let's get into it. First of all, why the energy issue? Because you talk about how energy is the currency of the universe, and Bitcoin is digital energy and monetary energy. So talk to me a little bit about where, that idea came from, and then we'll dive into some of the themes.
Yeah, so I mean, each year we do a different theme around Bitcoin, and last year we did the Austrian edition, which is I think the last episode that we did together, and we spoke about like the economic element. And yeah, this year I was going to do like I was thinking macro or privacy or something like that as a theme, and then once again Parker Lewis was like, dude, all the energy FUD, all the stupidity that's going around, like let's do an energy edition. So I just doubled down on that. And as we all know, and sailors really memed this into existence, is Bitcoin is energy money. Bitcoin just sort of has this deep relationship to the idea of energy and time. And fundamentally speaking, and from a physics standpoint, time is also related to energy. So like if you really sort of trace everything back, you're talking energy as the quality substance. You don't even know what to call it really. That is, that underlies everything. So, Bitcoin's relationship to that is very interesting. And yeah, we wanted to explore that. So, yeah, six writers like last year. We got Marty Bent, Brian Gitt, Andrew Myers, Drew Armstrong, Gideon
Gideon.
Powell, and myself. Yeah.
I love it. Well, I I mean, energy is life. And I think today sometimes people get confused and they conflate energy with electricity. And we do hear a lot of, I think, misinformed headlines and people spouting out about things that they don't fully understand. I mean, energy is all around us. It is what fuels us. So talk to me a little bit about weak and strong energy, because you talk about how the quality of money is a reflection of the quality of us as a civilization and the culture. And when you can just make mass amounts of weak money, then the culture sort of morally decays, economically decays. It decays in every way. But then when you have strong money and you have strong people, that's when you can kind of create abundance and prosperity. So can you dive into that, which I know you discuss a little bit in your essay?
Yeah, so the section, so I dedicated a section in the essay, and I've got it in front of me here, called Quality over Quantity. And like I did a bit of an etymological sort of like insight into sort of the words we use and what quality and quantity, etc., mean. And what I wanted to get through in this part of the essay is this idea of when you optimize for quality, it moves life in a particular direction. When you optimize for quantity, it moves things in a completely different direction. It reminds me of this adage that I learned from Tony Robbins actually many, many years ago, which was he said, you're either growing or you're dying. He said, there's no middle point. You don't get to like sort of take a break, or you don't get to like have a, oh, can I just stop this? Can I have the middle spot for a second? You don't get that. You either grow or you die. And my belief is that we have the same with respect to quality and excellence on the one end of the spectrum, or you send the world towards average, which I believe average is actually the pathway to death. And that sounds like a heavy statement, but it is one in which the energy is descendant versus the energy being ascendant. One is growing, one is dying effectively. And what I spoke about was, I used the example of quantity, and I'll read a quick excerpt here just so people have a frame in their mind. Is I say, I make a thing about weight and gravitas and charge, basically, and then the sentence opens with, contrast that with fiat money, the abstract, flimsy, promissory note that can be created out of thin air and changed on a whim. It lacks both weight and substance. It is conceptual and theatrical in nature. Think about the term quantitative easing, for example. It is the process of increasing the quantity of money by making it easier to produce. This, of course, occurs at the expense of its promise and quality and makes the money easy or soft. This is why people don't trust it. They tried to like make money printing sound nicer, but like even in the words, you are increasing the quantity by making it easier. Whereas Bitcoin is qualitatively hardening because the quantity is fixed. It's not up for discussion. It's not up for the FOMC meeting or whatever. The quantity is fixed. That is set aside. Therefore, as the demand for this thing, this substance, whatever you want to call Bitcoin, increases, and as it is around for a longer and longer period of time. This is why I'm a big proponent of just don't touch or don't fix what isn't broken. Like the longer Bitcoin does what it does and stays the same, the more people will come to subconsciously associate stability and trust with it. And what that does is it increases the subconscious association we have with its quality. And that is fundamentally important because that becomes later a reflection, I believe, on the quality of the civilization that the money enables.
It's time for a quick break to hear these messages from my partners who make this podcast possible. First up, Bitcoin 2024, the world's biggest Bitcoin conference, is coming to Nashville next year. Come join us for 3 full days of keynotes, panels, networking events, workshops, concerts, and more. Anything can happen here, especially if you dream of working in the industry. Ticket prices go up every month until the big event, so don't miss out. You want to get your tickets early. Head to b.tc/conference and use the code HODL, HODL, for 10% off. I'll see you in Nashville. Next up, Coinkite, which offers everything you need to safely self-custody your Bitcoin. Coinkite produces the Cold Card Wallet, which is the cold storage device I use for safekeeping my Bitcoin. You can verify the source code, it's ultra secure, and it's easy to use even if you're a beginner. Head to their site in my show notes to find all their custody products, cold cards in different colors, seed phrase plates, tap signers, block clocks, and more, and get a 5% discount using my link. Become your own bank with Bitcoin and Coinkite. Next up, CrowdHealth. Health insurance costs are sky high today, and you send your money every month to a massive corporation, and you never see that money again, even if you don't get sick. Luckily, there's another option, and it's all about community. CrowdHealth brings together Bitcoiners who crowdfund each other's healthcare, so you no longer have to pay fiat health insurance companies. You get to help other Bitcoiners, and they help you in return. So how it works is when someone needs a doctor or hospital visit, CrowdHealth negotiates down the medical bill lower than what insurance would be, and the community helps you fund the costs. You get to save the money you would have sent to insurance, and hey, why not put it into Bitcoin? For more information and to join, head to joincrowdhealth.com/Natalie. No, I completely agree with you. I mean, when you think of fiat, there's no work behind it. It's just created at the stroke of a key. And as you say, excessive quantities reduce the ultimate quality. And we can see that with our mass food, mass media, mass everything. And that makes me think of something that Preston has talked about really thoughtfully, which is that when you manipulate money at its base layer and you artificially lower interest rates and you diffuse capital to certain areas, you reduce the biodiversity. You basically weaken the strength of
Correct.
competition, and you create monopolies, which ultimately is not a reflection of quality. It's not a reflection of true value and superiority and excellence. It's a reflection of the manipulation.
Well, it's a monocrop. What's a
Yeah,
monocrop? A big chunk of wheat. What are you doing? You've got a whole lot of, you've
yeah,
got a large quantity of wheat, which is all low quality food. Large quantities of soy, low quality stuff. It's like whenever we take the quantitative route, we decrease the quality. These things are mutually exclusive, and they're directionally opposite. And it's extremely extremely important. You mentioned it with
yeah,
the mass everything. It's all around. It's all around us.
yeah, yeah, and it's deteriorating. Um, One thing that I think it was Parker Lewis said in his little intro or in his section of this edition was he talked about how you embrace the power of the individual, and you explain how Bitcoin will serve as a tool to reward excellence. And then you go into your piece and you talk about strong individuals and power versus the weak. And I want to dig into this a little bit because I mean, you recognize in actually one of the sections that a lot of people see Bitcoin as uplifting the masses, uplifting people who are in poverty, who may be weaker in many ways, and that's a good thing. But then you sort of seem to argue against it in some ways. So can you talk about that a little?
Yeah, so let's trigger some people. I'll read the excerpt out again. So it says, most people think that Bitcoin's greatest contribution will be to lift the masses up and quote unquote help the weak. Then I say, while that will likely occur, but not for the reasons you think it will, it is my unpopular belief that the more important contribution and impact to mankind will be that Bitcoin makes the strongest stronger, the best better, and the most powerful more powerful. And then I even qualified after I say, I can already feel you squirming as you read that line. So please read it again and allow me to clarify. So I use my words very specifically there. I didn't say the stronger. I said the strongest. And I didn't say, the better. I said the best, better, and the most powerful, more powerful. And I'll explain what I mean by that by way of analogy. It's like when you put two people into a ring for a fight, what you're expecting is the best, the most skilled, the fastest, the strongest, the most powerful, whatever it is to win, right? Um, Luck is a thing that happens, and we can't. Luck is the kind of the ineffable component of the universe that we'll never be able to like put our finger on. But by and large, statistically speaking, the best generally you put them into a ring, the best one will win, right? When that doesn't occur is if the game is rigged in some way. So what you generally want, and the society is a macro of these microcosms, is you want to create a framework. And this is my argument about Bitcoin: is that the framework isn't about focusing on the weak. The framework is about constructing a society in which those who have the desire, the merit, the energy, the vitality, the wherewithal to actually do something about their lives in whatever dimension is important to them. They are the ones who will benefit from a Bitcoin standard. The people who choose to be lazy, not do anything, which these are examples of weakness. They will not benefit from a Bitcoin standard. It just, the, maybe they'll benefit. I'll say it this way: it's like indirectly because civilization functions a little bit better. But for me, the definition of a weak individual, and I go into this a little bit later, is like people have this like misconception that the strong individuals are people like Christine Lagarde or Klaus Schwab. I'm like, no, that is the definition of the weak individual. Like the weak person is the one who gets in the ring, who ensures that his opponent's water has been spiked or throws sand in his eyes because he
Right.
can't win because he's better. He has to win, in order to win, he has to cheat. And that's how the current system is functioning. Like the people who win are the people who are the most adept cheaters. Whereas in a functional society, the people who are the most competent, the most, oriented towards mastery in whatever domain or dimension they're operating, they will get rewarded. And that's how you structure a civilization towards excellence, not towards weakness. And the most ironic thing about this is if you orient your society towards weakness, towards helping the weak, what you end up doing is you disincentivize strength and excellence, and you actually devolve all of society downwards. This is what I was talking about before, descending energy versus optimizing for excellence and upwards reaching. That actually creates room such that the weaker or the smaller or whatever among us actually get lifted up. And this is like it ties back to what we said earlier about like, you're either growing or you're dying. Civilization is growing or dying based on the direction it is facing. And you have to pick one. Like, we don't get the choice of getting a bit of both. You have to pick fairness or you pick equality. And equality sends you to hell. Fairness puts you in the direction of heaven.
Well, I want to dig into some of this a little bit more because when you say Bitcoin makes the most powerful more powerful, that gives me the visualization of the concentration of power that has caused so many of the issues that we have in society. So, how do we, I mean, doesn't that say that we're encouraging for very few people to be at the top and everyone else to sort of be fighting for the pieces that are left?
Well, yes, because the top can only fit very few people by definition. You can't have everybody at the top because then it's no longer the top. So etymologically speaking, the word excellent, its roots, its Proto-Indo-European roots are in egg and celere, which means to separate oneself from the baseline, right? So the concept of excellence, the concept of concentration of some sort of power is always going to happen with the few. The psyop, and this is the real psyop, is that we have told otherwise strong, virtuous, and noble people that power is evil. So they've abdicated their claim towards, because think about what power is. Power is the capacity to channel energy over time. Power is not evil. Like this is an incredibly this is incredibly powerful psyop in the modern world. Is we've almost like come to believe that the concept of power is bad. No, it's not. It's like, and this is where Bitcoiners drive me sort of crazy sometimes. Is they'll say in one sentence proof of work is good, and then they'll say in the other sentence power is bad. They are the same goddamn thing. There's no difference between them.
So
They are related.
do you agree with the statement that power corrupts and absolute
No,
power?
absolutely not.
You
Absolutely
don't.
not. I think that is a
Okay,
complete scam. It is a
walk me
complete
through that.
scam.
Well,
Power corrupts the weak. This is the point. So the weak go and they try and attain power for the sake of power. The strong channel power for a higher cause or for a reason. So when Alexander the Great went and he wanted to see the end of the world, he on foot through 12 years of battle, of snow, he fucking crossed the Hindu Kush with like armor and weight and a whole army with 40,000 people in the middle of winter. None of this like polyester shit that we wear these days to like protect ourselves from the elements and stuff like that. Crossed the goddamn Hindu Kush with this desire to be the first man to see the ends of the earth, which is the equivalent of being the first man to see the stars today or go to Mars, right? Like that was the energy, that was the direction of this power. These are the kind of people who can wield power. The psyop is that people who are strong, and I talk about this later in the essay, is responsibility is a function of strength. Responsibility is a function of the amount of weight you can bear. That is the definition of strength. And that is the kind of archetype of person who should be wielding power. We have been told power is bad, 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 it's evil, it's evil, it's evil, it corrupts. So people who are otherwise good, who have the capacity to bear the responsibility and the strength to take care of themselves, their family, those around them, they thought, oh, fuck, power is bad. So they've left a vacuum for the parasites, for the weak to attain power, and they will keep and hold that power like the Bolsheviks did in Russia. They will do everything they can to destroy and bring everything else down just so that they can be the only ones with a little bit of power. It is a petty, weak approach to life versus channeling power for the right reasons by the right people.
That's really interesting. So basically, you're arguing that the bad, the most weak in our society are the ones that have the most power. So power is almost getting a bad name.
100%. 100%.
And what I actually find most interesting about that is, and maybe some of the people watching or listening to this will agree, but I have thought on countless occasions throughout my life, looking at people who have a ton of power and wealth and all that comes with it, and I'm like, how could you do what you did to hurt someone? I would, if I was in that position, if I had that amount of money or that amount of power, what I would do, I would want to give back. I would want to help in so many ways. I would want to inspire. I would want, to help better education and all the things. And yet the people that you see at the top, it seems like a vacuum of morality and values, and the desire to help one another. And so I end up feeling like, is it only the bad that get to be in that position? And certainly not everyone, but you see a lot of powerful people who just aren't very good people.
Because the framework within which we're operating is such
It's
that
rigged. It's rigged.
it's not that the best get better, it's that the worst get better, right? It's that the weak get powerful. So it's like that. There's a saying by Plato, which is the measure of the measure of a man, and I'm going to paraphrase poorly here. I was chatting about it with Breedlove yesterday. The measure of a man is what he does when he has power. Right?
Mm-hmm.
That
Yep.
is so power is agnostic. That like I can't stress this enough. It's not that power corrupts. Power corrupts the weak. And I say this like
Mm.
specifically later in the essay. It's the person who goes into a ring and beats up a kid, that's not powerful. Or the guy who gets into a ring and beats up a woman. So, it's like the South Park caricature, right? Like, the guy that's playing a tranny and, beats up the women. It's like, that is not powerful. That is not strong. That's not responsible. Like, when Alexander went to fight Persia, he was punching up. It was 40,000 men versus 500,000. People can't get these sort of numbers through their head these days. So the kind of people who are incentivized to gain political and economic power today, since we've oriented society in such a way that the average is the goal and all of this other shit, it's created a vacuum such that truly powerful, responsible, noble people. What I would, and I do some etymology in the argument in the article where I argue about, what elite really means, what noble really means, what aristocrat
Yeah.
really means. Like these people have been discouraged. Like we literally built civilization this way. We built civilization through having the best, most noble, most strong of us be the leaders, because leadership comes with a level of responsibility. You can't just place any monkey in a place of leadership because you invert the structure. And Breedlove was actually saying this yesterday. He's like, we are a mimetic species. We copy and we mimic. If you have the most vile creatures in a position of quote unquote leadership, the Trudeaus of the world, that reflects in the rest of society and everything decays. You need to have strong leadership, and we've the thing about life is that still kind of shines through sometimes. As much as people have their problems with Elon Musk and everything like that, he represents, the archetype of what I would argue is a great man. He is still that archetype, and he is a bulwark against, against some of the other stupidity and madness that's going out there. So, yeah, summed up, power's not bad.
Okay. Well, and I would agree in the sense that the weak, they really fear truth and they fear freedom of speech. And we've seen that a lot recently. I wanted to ask you one last question to sort of wrap up this part of the conversation, and then I want to turn to your AI project. But just the idea of the masses. People are born into circumstances that they can't help. One thing that growing up, I think I always responded well to tough love, and that's just the way I grew up, right? My mom was not easy on me, and much was expected of me. And I did have a lot of responsibility, and I couldn't kind of feel sorry for myself because everyone has it tougher somewhere. And so
Mm-hmm.
I was definitely raised with this ethos of meritocracy, and no one's going to help. So you got to help yourself and go, you won't have a special advantage like some people, but just go after it. Go after your dreams, and it will be hard along the way. And so I think I've always expected that, but also faced challenges. And as a result, grew and developed more confidence. And I'm actually grateful for those challenges. Now, taking that context, what is the appropriate way to help the poor, the weak in the sense of being born somewhere without advantage, without being able to maybe create wealth, without access to some of the opportunities other people have access to? Because sometimes I feel like decisions are made today out of this it's almost like a facade of kindness to help others, but is it really? So how do we help the weak, the poor, those that really could use just a step up on a ladder?
Do you want the nice sounding answer or the honest one?
Well, obviously the honest one.
So
But
you,
everyone is helped some way in some, like there
yeah,
have been people who helped me. There have been people generous along the way. There have been mentors. There are people who take time. There's a lot of different ways to help.
totally.
And today, unfortunately, we have this idea that we just need handouts. The government, we need to take from someone, we need to steal from someone or confiscate from someone to give and redistribute somewhere else. But when you just give and something is, I don't know, handed to you too easily and you don't appreciate it, that's not really helpful either.
Everything has consequences. I was talking with a friend today. We were talking about something about like nomading versus living in a certain place, and he just said, "Look, everything's got a tax, right? Like the tax of nomading is that you're moving around all the time. You don't get to build deep relationships. The tax of staying in one place is that you miss out on the rest of the world, right? So
Mhm.
everything we do has a consequence, has a tax, and we just have to pick our poison to a large degree in life. To answer your question though. The only way to help others is to initially begin with helping yourself, and being an example. Once again, we're mimetic creatures. That's fundamentally where you have to start before you go out crusading in Africa to help the starving kids. Help yourself, help your family, help the people who matter around you. Then, I mean, this is the Jordan Peterson clean your freaking room argument, right? Like, do that first. Don't go out like this is the problem with moralizing, and this is why like I'm even very wary of using this word moral anymore. Like I've even started chopping it out of my book because Bushido of Bitcoin was originally the moral code for Bitcoiners. Now I'm changing it to a code of virtues because I think virtue is the more important thing to focus on. I think morality is a big scam. It's like designed to make people kind of like create this frame. I'm moral and all this sort of stuff. Like all the
It's subjective.
greenies.
Hmm.
Sorry.
It's subjective.
It's very subjective, and you'll get like yeah, it's a great way to do some browbeating on people. I'm more moral than you because I'm more religious. I'm more moral than you because I'm saving the planet. I'm more moral than you because I'm a vegan. Whatever, right? Like it's virtue that should be, I think, the thing that you aspire to, and virtue is the um, the the desire or the channeling of one's energy towards being the best one can be, essentially, like if you wanted to try and find a definition for virtue, and that's the better focus. Now, can you along the way, if you have, by looking after yourself and looking after people around you who matter, and you've created excessive wealth, can you, if you'd like to, go and mentor people, go and do other things? By all means, you can. And that is on you. That is 100% your decision. You can do whatever the hell you want. Um, but I think there's an order of operations, number one. And then there is like, it just, I don't know, I'm allergic to the moralizing of, that thou must, do this, or you are immoral. Like if you're not, eating the bugs, or helping the people in the Middle East, or if you're not have an opinion and you don't have Six Flags in your Twitter account, you're immoral. Like, all of that stuff to me is just like really, really weird. And I've learned not to buy into that. But yeah, I mean, unfortunately, we've all got our own lots in life. As you said, we're born with our own set of advantages and disadvantages.
Hmm.
Some are more lucky than others. You can like equality of opportunity. We dug into this yesterday with Breedlove. Equality of opportunity is a fantasy. It's a complete scam as well. Like equality of outcome is downright evil, but equality of opportunity is just as stupid, because you can't get equality of opportunity. Like unless we like, there's two ways to get equality of opportunity. You have to do both. You have to blow up the entire world, right? So you have to like nuke everything, and everybody has to be born a test tube baby, like in Brave New World, and have the same genetic makeup and code so that they think the same, operate the same, function the same. Otherwise, we are all born genetically different. We all have different predispositions. We all have different parents. We all come into different wealth. We all come into at a different time and period in history. The sun and the stars are in a different place. Different resources, different country, different everything. You can't have equality of opportunity. It's fundamentally impossible. So we have to work with our lot. We have to do the best that we can do with our lot, and then choose how to, be remembered, and what we leave behind. And, once again, strive to be noble, aristocratic, elite, virtuous.
Mhm.
And that mimetically inspires those who are impacted by us in some way, shape, or form to do better and be better. And then you raise civilization that way.
Yeah, no, it's really interesting. And going back to what I mentioned earlier, this facade, I mean, it was through Bitcoin that I learned about the facade of the help that the World Bank and IMF
Of
offer
course.
developing countries, like helping the poor. Oh, actually, you're extracting value and resources and prosperity and leaving them with these ridiculous loans and high interest rates that they can never pay back, that siphon wealth to the small amount of people who are clearly, weak and oppressive. So no, it's really fascinating to think about how Bitcoin could address some of these things. I mean, Bitcoin being the outcome of the engineering of better money, right? I mean, it could have been called something else, but Bitcoin ultimately was that perfecting of being able to ensure scarcity, ensure decentralization, so that you actually do have to provide value, you have to work for it, as opposed to being given something or being able to play in a rigged system. Okay, let's turn now to AI for a little bit, because I find this topic fascinating. Sometimes, it can go over your head and you could get down a rabbit hole of, is it good or is it bad? Or computers going to rule our lives and control us and be programmed by the bad, weak people. So tell me a little bit more about why you wanted to work in the intersection of Bitcoin and AI and what that really means. It's time for another quick break to hear these messages from my partners. I'm excited to share that I'm an advisor for the Orange Pill app. If you haven't downloaded this app yet, you're missing out on connecting with Bitcoiners in your area. The Orange Pill app is focused on building the social layer for Bitcoin and helping create opportunities for in-person connections and community building. You create a profile and you'll see lots of familiar faces, and then you can search for Bitcoiners and Bitcoin events based on your location. I'm geotagged in my home base, St. Louis, and I'm excited that Orange Pill app has allowed me to meet new people in my city. Come join us, use my referral code in the show notes, and start connecting today. Next up, I want to take a moment to recommend an outstanding recent book in the Bitcoin space, Bitcoin Evangelism by Brian DeMint. I've had the chance to have Brian on the show, and this is really the ultimate tool for orange pilling your friends, your family, your coworkers, and it will make you a more effective messenger for Bitcoin. We all have that story of how we disregarded Bitcoin the first time we heard about it because either the arguments weren't compelling enough, or maybe they weren't framed in a way that we could easily grasp them. Think of something like trustlessness or immutability. These are concepts that now we understand as Bitcoiners, but how do you explain them simply to someone totally new in the space? Well, Bitcoin Evangelism will help you do that. It will allow you to become a Bitcoin evangelist so that we orange pill millions of new Bitcoiners in the new year. Head to the link in my show notes to buy the book today.
Look, when I went down the rabbit hole, I was interested in language models specifically because I love language and writing, and I thought there was something interesting here. The more I've gone down the rabbit hole, the less magical it's been for me. Like I've realized that these are just probability machines. There's nothing interesting here. I've really, 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 really reinforced my belief that there's no such thing as AGI or general intelligence. Computers are not going to rule the world. They don't have agency. They're not going to come out of the freaking circuits and like have a will of their own. I think that is uniquely human, and uniquely something that is reserved for life. So I have zero fear about that stuff. Yeah, zero, 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 zero. It's a complete red herring. It's a complete red herring. When you hear
Even
someone
when
talk
you see
about,
these, even when you see these robots that are like armed and you don't worry
yeah,
that the
correct. So,
code will
so
become
someone,
malicious.
no, the code doesn't come malicious on its own. The code is made malicious, or the code, the externalities of the code are malicious because the way, the nature of code is that you can't predict everything that can do, right? This is one of the unique things about Bitcoin, is that because it's so narrow, it is not Turing complete. You can predict things quite well. But as soon as you get to Turing complete code, which is how all other programs are done, you get externalities that you can't predict. And that's the problem with code fundamentally. It's not the code's going to develop a life of its own, is that it can malfunction, it can do something that you didn't expect it to do, or it can do precisely what you expect it to do. And, it goes around and, tracks and kills anybody who didn't get their 18th subscription of their medicine, whatever, right? Like, that is no different. That is not something special about AI. So people have to see through this. It's not that AI is unique. It's that AI is just the. I mean, we shouldn't even call it that. I think Brian Romelli says it well. It's like intelligence amplification. Like this is just a new generation of code, computation, and automation, and that is really the essence of all of this stuff. It's just more automation, just at a more abstracted state. We have learned how to automate the creation of coherent language. That's literally all we've done. And the mechanism by which that happens is honestly not very different than the mechanism with which Uber matches you to a driver or a rider, right? Or how Airbnb shows you, places that you might be interested in. It's basically the same thing. It's still math. It's still probability. It's still law of large numbers. There was a great report that came out 2 weeks ago, which is everyone's all the nerds have been yapping about, there's all these emergent properties in language models. And emergent properties are generally this idea that something emerges out of a system that you didn't expect. And what the report outlines, we were wrong. There's no emergent properties. This is just the law of large numbers happening again. It's like it's so hilarious to watch all the nerds like frothing about like their new AI gods are going to pop up out of the circuits. Complete scam. It's total bullshit. Like I said, it's the same story again. We're talking about high-powered automation, and fundamentally, at the end of the day, the biggest risk is not that the AI is going to become sentient and make decisions on its own. It's that a couple of monkeys decide to play language police and decide which language models or what the Overton window that these new tools can operate within is, like they're the ones who decide what's safe and what's responsible, etc. So that is a long way of answering why I actually started doing this, is that I wanted to create a suite of open source models that didn't, parrot the party line, right? When you ask our Satoshi model about inflation, it actually straight up tells you, no, inflation is bad. It is the erosion of purchasing power of people's money. Like you ask any other model, I don't care if it's ChatGPT or all the open source models, all of them out there, other than our Satoshi model, says inflation is okay if it's 2%.
Right.
All of them. Why? Because every single model out there is a reflection of the aggregate of the data that they're trained on. We have trained our models specifically on Austrian economics and Bitcoin. So it offers a different frame of reference.
So do you have an app for this Satoshi model?
Yeah, so people can go to spiritofsatoshi.ai. So there's there's a couple things. The spiritofsatoshi.ai. So there's still like a very beta, or I can't even call it a beta. It's like an alpha model that's available there. So people can go there. They can log in with Nostr, with Lightning. They can pay a few sats and they can use the model, right? So it's not a wrapper on ChatGPT. It's not none of like most of the things out there are just like using embeddings and referencing ChatGPT. Like this is an actual model. We also have Satoshi GPT, which is actually more powerful. So we took, OpenAI released custom GPTs where it allowed people to go in and actually create custom versions of ChatGPT. And we did that, and that is now the most used Bitcoin-centric custom GPT on OpenAI's website. So that is... Yeah, it's far more powerful because obviously ChatGPT's infrastructure can do charts, imagery, also. So we've like plugged in all sorts of stuff. You can ask it like hash rate. You can get it to produce charts on like hash rate and like price. You can ask it where can I eat and pay with Bitcoin. Like we're plugged in with BTC Map. Like you can ask it about the latest Bitcoin news. Like so it's like plugged into all of these things. Like our own model will be able to do all this stuff at some point, but it's going to be quite a while before ours is obviously as powerful as ChatGPT's underlying infrastructure. So, that's kind of like a early prototype of where we're going to get to. The benefit of our model is that it is without prompting organically like a Bitcoiner.
It's so interesting. I thought that this absolutely was needed, especially when ChatGPT came out. I was like, there has to be an app where you could just ask Bitcoin questions. I wanted to create like a Nat GPT where it's only Bitcoin. But it was funny because the reason I said that is, Alex Epstein, who writes a lot about energy and fossil fuels and all that. I really like his work. We saw each other at a conference, and he goes, "Do you have my Aleks GPT?" And I go, "What?" He designed his own before you could create your own with ChatGPT. He actually had developers create this, and you could ask it anything. And I mean, it's really great because it's programmed to have all of his writing and all of his research work. So I just asked it, "Does Bitcoin use too much energy?" And it goes, "The question of whether Bitcoin uses too much energy is based on a flawed premise." And then it like goes into this thing about energy use, and it's really great.
Yeah. Well, just for clarity though, that's not a trained model. Very,
Okay.
very, very different to what we're doing. That's what's called a ChatGPT or a existing model. It's a wrapper on an existing model with
Okay.
his work embedded. So
Got
the
it.
way this works is we did this 100 times. We did this with Jordan Peterson. Like you can go to jbp.ai and you can see a little model there of Jordan Peterson. Like
Really?
this is super easy to do. So you take a corpus of work, so like Alex Epstein's books, you break it up into a bunch of paragraphs, you embed them, which means you turn them into numbers that a language model can read. And
Right.
then you just have any language model, could be ChatGPT, it's usually the most powerful, or any open source one. And what happens is when you ask it a question, it references a relevant piece of context from those embeddings, it injects that, and then it responds with that context in place. So that's a good hacky way to build something, but that is not a new model. So it's not an actual Alex Epstein model. What we did was a whole process of fine tuning. We spent a couple $100,000 building like an actual model. Very different process, night and day.
Interesting. Well, okay, here's my last AI question that I want to ask you. I was listening to one of Vivek Ramaswamy's speeches, and I think it was a kid that asked him about AI, what he thinks about it. And he gave the most fascinating answer. He talked about how when he was young, he was a ball boy, and he had to make the calls of whether the ball in a tennis game was in or out. And he said that the tennis players would argue, and they would sometimes get like really animated and angry and upset because they would say, "No, no, 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 it was actually in." And then they switched probably in the last couple of years to AI making the calls. And he said that what happened was crazy. The players stopped arguing with the calls. They actually trusted the computer more than the people. They felt that the computer couldn't be wrong or corrupted. And so what he said ultimately is that what he fears is humans' reactions to AI. He doesn't fear AI, and he's he's obviously, I think, pro the technology, but he doesn't know how people will react to the different types of AI applications and products that are going to exist. What do you think about that? Do you agree?
Yeah, so let's riff on that. So I gave a talk in Prague last year where I talked about how AGI is a red herring and what the real risks are. So I kind of separated real AI risks and fake AI risks. And in the fake, I put like artificial general intelligence, computers are going to come alive, all that sort of junk. Fake. Real risks are, think about how, particularly over the last couple of years, how people ingest information these days. Like you go to Google and you ask Google a question. And I mean, I still remember like 5 years ago, even like we used to go to the second page, maybe, and 10 years ago, you used to go to like the second, third, or fourth page of Google, right? Like you would think a little bit deeper. These days, people don't go past the first result. Like Google's even got its little thing there, right? So it's like whatever Google says, that's the truth. Should I, get this experimental medication, whatever? Like, yep, that's what I should do. Okay, no worries. What we are told by the computer becomes truth, becomes reality, right? And the danger is like we are, I think, one of the potential paradigm shifts that's happening, particularly with language models. AI has always been there. It's always there. It's, like we've been in the AI age for the last, 20 years. Like there's nothing new about it in that sense. Language models in particular, though, the capacity for a program to speak at least seemingly like a human, like you can very quickly tell what's AI written, what's like written by a sentient being. Like actually, I'll make a quick digression. I think the funniest thing about the rise of like language models is that they are more like midwit obsolescence technology. Like the NPCs that are writing your average run of the mill blog or like CNN article or something like that. They're the ones who are getting obsoleted by ChatGPT because it takes no brains to write any of that, and ChatGPT like spews out the same garbage, right? But I digress. The thing that is likely to occur with language models is the development of what I think of as the language user interface. And I think it was Stephen Wolfram he's like this polymath who created interesting AI languages in the mathematics space. I think he coined that, and what that means is to date, we kind of like interact with our user interfaces through tapping, pointing, clicking, all this sort of stuff. Like, as time passes, we'll be able to interact with user interfaces through speaking, right? And you'll ask questions. If the language user interface becomes your source of truth, and it is the thing that answers questions for you, and you just trust it. If you then go upstream and you work out who what I said earlier, the language police are, right? What they define as acceptable, what they define as the Overton window, you quickly get a situation where truth is defined upstream. You get a situation where you get like a beautiful inception, really. And I shouldn't even use the word beautiful; it's the wrong word. A something Orwell and Huxley could have only dreamt of in terms of their dystopian novels. You can like incept ideas very easily through the advent of a language user interface because it becomes the gospel, right? And the only way, honestly, to combat that is to have many, 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 many models. There needs to be a Bitcoin model, a self-defense model, a homeschooling model, a keto model, a carnivore model, a brown rice model, I don't know, whatever. Like, there needs to be all of these different variations. It's the only way you can get diversity in thought, because once again, the challenge is, or the risk is, the Overton window that is considered safe for linguistic discourse is managed upstream. And I think that's a losing battle, honestly, for these quote unquote managers. They are, open source has kind of like sprouted in a big way, and I think that boat is going to be too hard to catch. The unfortunate reality is most people will probably go to whatever the mainstream option is, and that's going to happen. But this is once again, remnant, right? The masses don't matter. They're just going to listen to whatever ChatGPT says, and then those of us with a brain, we're going to use some alternatives and discover something a little bit more true.
Oh, it's interesting. Yeah, I'm sure there will be powerful network effects with AI as well. All right, lightning round. I'm going to ask you a couple of questions before we wrap up, because when I go to Bitcoin conferences and I interact with people that are not in this space and haven't been fully orange pilled, I get a lot of the same questions, actually, of why people are hesitant about Bitcoin or the things that are their biggest obstacles. So I'm going to ask you a couple of them, and I want you to summarize your best responses for these so that maybe we can all learn from you. And this could be the ChatGPT response we go with when we hear this in our conversations with people. So my first question is, why does it not matter that we don't know who Satoshi is? Or doesn't?
But I do. Look, I mean, fundamentally, Bitcoin being let me say this one. We don't know who created the wheel. We don't know who invented gold. We don't know who invented many of the things that we're using, but we use them because they work, and Bitcoin fundamentally works. And it's something that, if you like, you can validate for yourself. And as a result, you need to make the choice whether you want to validate whether this is of use or importance to you or not. So, like, the fact that there is 21 million, the fact that, like, once you understand that this is a beast or a thing that is got more to do with using the inefficiency of social consensus, like, it uses it in a really unique way, which is, once something is like got too many people required to make a decision, nothing changes. Once you realize that, it's a very unique way to create a network that doesn't change, and that's Bitcoin's most useful power. So therefore, it doesn't matter who created it.
All right. The next question I get is, can AI or quantum computing crack Bitcoin?
No, quantum computing is going to, if anything, make Bitcoin stronger, because first of all, if at some point it gets applied to mining, well, you're just going to increase the hash rate, which is good for Bitcoin. And when you try and apply it, like, the only risk is potentially unwinding the relationship between the public and private key, that's really the only risk, not in the mining and the SHA-256 side of things. Um, I don't believe quantum computers will ever be better than ASICs, or application-specific things at doing that anyway. And if we did, if somehow we got to that stage, which is extremely, 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 extremely unlikely, I think that's a long way away, and there will be things that happen along the way that potentially allow you to uh, re-encrypt the public component of your address to make it harder. So it's like a game of cat and mouse. So I don't think quantum computing and AI, absolutely not. Absolutely fucking not. Like quantum computing is a potential risk, like long term. AI is absolutely not a risk.
Okay. And my last question, and this is probably among my favorites. What if they shut the internet down? What if there's some massive cyber attack? They take over the grid and the internet is completely down.
Well, then you're probably going to die in about 72 hours. So it doesn't matter. Like, seriously, like if that's someone's argument, like dollars ain't gonna help them, gold ain't gonna help them, nothing's gonna help them. Like the point at which the world is at, everything relies on the internet. Your energy, your power, your food, how you eat, communications, everything is relying on it. The internet goes down tomorrow, say goodbye. Like don't worry about a nuclear bomb. Like that's a bigger catastrophe to modern civilization than anything else. So if your argument is that Bitcoin's going to fail, okay, congratulations, bro, you're going to fail. So like if that's how you're building your entire like future of life, you've already lost. So I think it's just a dumb argument.
I knew you would have really animated answers for these. No, it is fascinating to think about. I just watched that movie, Leave the World Behind, and I was like, God, yeah, we really are all connected. And there's this scene where all the Teslas like pile up because they were turned on and they drive themselves and they crash themselves and then blocked all the roads, which was fascinating. All right, well, Aleks, it's always so fun talking to you. I feel like we're just two friends catching up on a call, which we are. And I wanted to hear your final thoughts. Anything that we didn't talk about that you really want to share?
No, I mean, the only thing is I would encourage people to, particularly what we discussed earlier, is like rethink some of these tropes that we've been conditioned to believe, power is evil, absolute power corrupts, all these sort of things that we've been told, and to sort of dig a little bit deeper. And, I invite people who are interested to go and read the Uber Money article, and then obviously pick up a copy of the Bitcoin Times, support the work that we're doing, because I think it's really important. There is, this year's edition is phenomenal. It's absolutely beautiful. I know a couple of people that were listening to your episode last year picked up the Austrian edition, some of the others, so I'd love them to do the same. As a token of my appreciation, they can use the code ENERGY and they'll get 40,000 sats off for their purchase. But yeah, like keep an eye on that. Keep an eye on the AI stuff that we're doing. We're going to make some announcements in the coming weeks around Code Satoshi and the open source ones, and we've written the world's first Bitcoin AI report that'll go live next week, or depending when people listen to this. So yeah, loads of stuff happening.
I love it. It's always so great to talk to you. Can't wait to see you in Madeira at Bitcoin Atlantis. That'll be the first time we see each other for a while. So
Indeed.
yeah, Aleks, thanks so much.
Thank you, darling. Good to see you.
Thank you so much for checking out the video version of my show. Remember, this podcast is for educational and entertainment purposes only. Nothing constitutes as official investment advice, and you should always do your own research. Please reach out if you have guest suggestions or any feedback. My email is natalie@talkingbitcoin.com, and I'll see you next time.